Thank you, Joe. Now back to sharing the blanket, that hard thing. In the same letter to the Ephesians, this part will be shorter, don't worry, I'm not preaching a whole nother long sermon. In that same letter to the Ephesians, Paul also challenges the church. He's concerned about sexual immorality and drunkenness, among other things, and he says this: try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, rather expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, for everything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, sleeper, awake. Rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. So do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. So this isn't a bait and switch. It's an honest conversation with a church full of humans. And the part that jumps out for me is the reference to Isaiah 60 in the middle of that text. Sleeper, awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Now, I don't know if that's because we're in the liturgical season of Epiphany and it's all about light, or because last Saturday's call to worship was based on the same text, arise, shine, for your light has come and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Or maybe I'm drawn to that part of the text because, despite our good intentions and all the positives, we might be a little sleepy. Sleeper, awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. I've heard the FaithWorks model referred to as simple church, probably because of our low programming and our chill vibe. But there's a fine line between simple church and lazy church. And Pastor Rob and I have been talking about this, where are we? We actually don't know, and we would be curious to hear what you think. Because it's all fine and lovely. See, you don't pay me just to say you're amazing. You pay me also to speak some prophetic word of growth. So here we go. It's all fine and lovely to be a beautiful, warm, healing blanket. But if we don't share the blanket, if we just make it a cocoon, like I like to do in my actual bed, if we just make it a cocoon that keeps us cozy, are we not missing the point? We can probably agree with Paul that the days are evil. I've been thinking that, reading the paper the last couple weeks. Paying any attention to the news, we might agree. So what Paul says to the church in Ephesus is probably applicable to the church in Winnipeg. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time. And I read this just the other day in Greg Boyle's book, Cherished Belonging. We aren't meant to hoard and protect some mystical moment of inner peace. We are called to the world, yes, to the streets, with affectionate awe and warm hearts. It's about choosing all over again, with every breath we take, to be in the world who God is, compassionate, loving kindness. When God made a covenant with Israel, God's intention was not to show favoritism or to create a privileged people. God's desire was for Israel to be a blessing for all the nations and an example of what it can look like to be in relationship with God. God called Israel to share the blanket and calls us to do the same. So this is why the third part of the FaithWorks covenant is about the world. It's about praying for and expressing our love for our neighbors, showing them Jesus through real friendship. It's about praying for world leaders and working for peace. I don't want to keep FaithWorks all to myself, as tempting as it is to snuggle up. I want to stretch the blanket out so that it warms and heals more people. I want to share who we are and what happens here with friends and neighbors who might be looking for exactly this. So, why am I so shy, so hesitant to talk about what we've got going on here? I meet a lot of neighbors who are super friendly at the Little Free Library in my yard. We chat even in the cold of winter. And I hope every time they do not ask me what I do for a living. Being a pastor is not the honorable profession it used to be. Pastors and churches are suspect because of the judgment and harms of the past and of the present. And because pastors and churches are suspect, God is suspect. But we know God is good, and Jesus would not be in favor of many of the things done in his name. And we know the Spirit is alive and well, not only in the church, but in the world. And I think my friends and neighbors are still interested in authentic spirituality and the possibility of a compassionate God. So what can we, FaithWorks, do to share the blanket? And this is your turn. Time for Q&A. Pastor Rob's going to have a roving mic. And our questions are, you can answer any of these in any order. How have you experienced FaithWorks to be a beautiful, warm, healing blanket? What's your story? A little bit of your story, not 20 minutes of your story. And kids, if they want to be involved, what do you like about FaithWorks? And then what do you all think sharing the blanket means for FaithWorks? Let's chat a little bit, and then we will get to our activity.